Vice Chair Brown is present. Member Grills? Present. Member Grills is present. Member Bradford?
Here.
Member Bradford is present. Member Jones Sawyer?
Here.
Member Jones Sawyer is present. Member Lewis?
Here.
Member Lewis is present. Member Holder? Member Holder is present. Member Montgomery Stepp? Here. Member Montgomery Stepp is present. Member Tamaki?
Here.
Member Tamaki is present. Madam Chair, there are 9 members on the task force. It requires 5 for a quorum. There are 9 members present. A quorum has been established.
Thank you, Parliamentarian Johnson, and welcome members of the public to the California Reparations Task Force last hearing before we sunset July 1. I will now turn to public comment, which will last for 30 minutes. And I will turn to my task force members to ascertain whether we want public comment to be 2 minutes or 1 minute. We'll do 1 minute to maximize as many people as possible. I'll now turn to Aisha Martin Walton to resume the agenda.
Good morning, everyone. Again, welcome to the final task force meeting of this amazing 2-year process. Thank you all for coming out. We will start the public comment process. And just know that the task force, as always, wants to hear from everyone. The public comment period, as Chair Moore indicated, will be 30 minutes this morning, and each person will have 1 moment to speak. Please be advised that in fairness to everyone, at the 1 moment mark, you may be politely interrupted. The mic is to the left, and I have cue cards, so please, if you'll just kind of look at me for a moment. We want to just make sure that everyone has an opportunity to speak. Okay. So we will begin with our numbering. Cherise Cryer, Laura Murrell, Reggie Domain, Lakeisha Milner, Donnie Brown, and Pastor Tony Pierce. If you could please line up, we'll get started. Cherise Cryer, Laura Morrell, Reggie Romaine, Lakeisha Milner, Donnie Brown, and Pastor Tony Pierce. Okay, good morning. Ms. Cryer, you may begin.
Good morning, Task Force and DOJ members of the public. I stand here representing the nameless, the faceless, people you would never meet, whose lives were impacted by the work of this task force. I stand here representing generations of Black cooks, criers, Weathers, Rogers, Scurlocks, who were enslaved and never paid, who were overworked, beaten, raped, stolen from, lied to, who never got the promise of 40 acres and a mule, who never received equal pay, equal treatment, and did not benefit from affirmative action or the promises of America, liberty, and justice for all. To Governor Newsom, I don't think you have any idea what you have done. You have changed the course of history. This will begin a right or wrong that began centuries ago. To Dr. Weber, you deserve a Nobel Peace Prize. Last weekend, my family held a reunion / Juneteenth celebration in Geneva, Texas. Some of these people you would never see. Some of you don't even know where Geneva is. During the program, an elder asked if anyone wanted to share, and of course, I got up to talk about reparations and what's going on in California. And my call to my family was, you can get reparations too, okay? So this is going to impact not just lives in California, but lives across the nation, and I want to thank you for what you've done.
Thank you, Ms. Cryer. Next speaker, Ms. Morrell, Lori Morrell. Okay, we will move on. Reggie Romaine, good morning.
Morning. Final lap. It's the final lap of this here. This reparations task force. I appreciate y'all. Y'all opened up a whole can of worms. I'm gonna tell you this. Reparations is about repair. To me, I qualify. I'm gonna tell you how you repair this. First of all, America, from the evidence that they gave us, you're guilty. We in 1619, we was eating fufu. You kidnapped us, put a hate crime on us. That was the first one. Then you came here with all the other atrocities. When you brought us here, you raped our men, women, and kids. So therefore, you married us. Don't treat us like no cheap piece of meat. So therefore, our last name is American. So now it's the time for a divorce. What do you get in divorce? You get half the money, half the land, alimony, child support, attorney fees, and everything else. So that's what we want. And I tell you this, go to onepercenters.org. 1619 is the new party. Forget these Democrats and Republicans. We all black, and we going for blackness, and we gonna go give reparations to anybody from 1619. First day as a president, we'll give reparations.
Thank
There ain't no Obamas, ain't no more
Thank you so much.
and politics.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out this morning. Okay, next speaker should be Lakeisha Milner. Good morning.
Again, I just want to say, as far as reparations, we've already tried this. There's no reason for us to keep proving what has already been proven. There's no reason for you to say, we don't have enough money. We don't have money. We don't care if we don't have money. We have a debt that needs to be paid. It needs to be paid. Okay, we're still paying taxes. Our people have already worked. They've already given you stuff. And then you wonder, oh, but we're not a part of slavery. Why aren't you a part of slavery? Are you not reaping the benefits? Because we're reaping the benefits of what happened to our people. And it was horrific, and it's still horrific.
Thank you. Next speaker, Donnie Brown.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Today is a day of celebration. Today is a day of rejoicing because this has been a task force that has worked hard, a lot of meetings. And I'd like to say to the governor and the assembly members, do not make this political. Do not make this political. Give us our reparations. We have a great proposal, 600 pages of the wrongs. So if you're in this room and you're about reparations, please stand because the world is getting ready to hear us right now. Answer my question. What do we want? When? 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 What do we want? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next speaker, Pastor Tony Pierce. You may begin. Good morning.
Yes, thank you very much. In my hand, I hold a letter of congratulations and appreciations for the hard work of the California African American Blue Ribbon Task Force, including the executive branches of California, namely our governor, Gavin Newsom, the legislatures, especially Senator Bradford and Assemblyman Reggie Jones Sawyer, and our matriarch of this movement, Madam Secretary of State, Dr. Shirley Weber. I want to especially thank each and every one on the California Reparations Task Force. You have all done a tremendous job and service, calling special attention to Madam Chair Camilla Moore and longtime civil rights leader, Vice Chair Dr. Amos Brown. I'm sorry I can't thank each of you personally because you all done so well, especially with the hard work in putting together the economic piece.
Thank you,
By
Pastor.
Dr.
Pastor Pierce Price. I'm so sorry to. It is time. Your time's up. In fairness to everyone, but thank
Okay.
you so much for coming out.
Madam
We
Chair,
appreciate your comments, and we need to move to the next speaker.
did this later. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Next speaker.
I'm here because Black disabled are never counted, never protected, no spoken up for, nor get the service support or job opportunities they need to be thriving people of society. This is why I'm speaking up, because nobody speaks up for us. If reparations is passed, it should be non-taxable. And so people on SSI and SSDI and elderly can get the reparations checks without affecting their benefits. But also, it's the right thing to do. Everyone else got, you know, Jews and Japanese have got their share. Same with American Indians. It's only fair. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments this morning. Next, we should have Joan Mathis, Deborah Burrows, Sabrina Jefferson, Willie Pitchett. I may be pronouncing that incorrectly. I apologize. And B. Stewart, please line up. Please come forward. Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Yvette Stewart Gordon, and I'm here. I would like to thank everyone on the task force. I'm here because I hail from Los Angeles, East Side. My family is from Chula, Mississippi. Viola Wilson Cooper, Catherine Young, and the women before them, they were sharecroppers. They came out here to California looking for a better way to live. And with that, again, we experience harms. We have family members who have died during the war on drugs, family members that are currently incarcerated. So I stand here as a proud mother of Madam Chair Camilla Moore. And I want you to know that your ancestors are proud. I'm proud that God gave me the opportunity to have you to be here to champion such a momentous task. So I want to say, you know, your family, Rodney, Kijai, Jua, Jeffrey, Victor, Mignon, Bubble, Beanie, Wayne, the village that helped raise you. We are so proud of you, but most of all, the ancestors are proud of you.
Thank you so much for your comments this morning, and thank you for coming to every meeting. All right, next speaker, please.
My name is Willie Pickett, and I've heard a lot of things about what's going to be done with the money. You know, let's don't take the money supposed to be given to us and use it as a stimulus package. The state of California got enough money for stimulus package, and the government. And Gavin Newsom, is he here? Yeah, well, that's right. He went to the hills of fire. So Gavin Newsom, you want my support. I know you do. But today I need yours. And you're going to need mine later. And I'm talking mine on all of y'all. You're going to need ours later. I'm not saying, Gavin Newsom's going to need our support later. Speaking to the mic. Speaking to the mic. Gavin Newsom's going to need our support later. That's what I'm saying. Okay? I'm not saying impeach. I'm not saying to not support him. But he's going to run for another term. He's going to need our support again. And we need his support today. We really, really do. No, it's a shame that we're here going up with this over and over and over again. And I hope that, you know, that he don't give a few a check so you all go home.
Thank you.
Please don't let that happen.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your comments. Next speaker, please. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Deborah Burrows. And I just want to speak on how it affected my family. I was in junior high school in San Francisco. After junior high school in Oakland, they took me out of my junior high school and bused me to an all-white school. My grades went down. My mother owned 3 houses in San Francisco. She didn't know about generational health. Well, she was just glad to get it. I'm just speaking for those who didn't get it. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your testimony this morning. We should be hearing from Joan Mathis or Sabrina Jefferson.
Hi, good morning, task force and community. I'm Sabrina Watts Jefferson. I'm speaking on behalf of my enslaved ancestors, my current family, and the African American community. After being denied freedom, education, basic human rights, and our 40 acres and a mule, it's time, our time has come. And I would like to say that to my 4th great grandparents who were born slaves and they were the last ones that were slaves. It's time, our time has come, and this reparations will be making right the many centuries are wrong. Thank you for your work.
Thank you. All right, the next speaker should be Laura Morrell. Good morning.
Good morning, thank you. My name is Laura Morrell. I stand on behalf of the Greater Sacramento Urban League. As an organization committed to empowering Black and historically marginalized individuals throughout the region, we fully endorse the comprehensive interim report that sheds light on the enduring consequences of enslavement, racial terror, and the institution of slavery on the lives of African-descended people in America. The interim report unequivocally affirms the immeasurable and detrimental effects of slavery on African Americans' economic, health, educational, social, physical, and psychological well-being. GSUL exists to address these present and historical injustices and systemic barriers faced by African Americans. Reparations serve as a necessary pathway to rectify these historical injustices and dismantle systemic barriers, providing compensation, restitution, and support to those who have endured generations of economic and social disadvantages. I just want to extend our support and to all of the members here at the task force. Thank you for your work. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming out this morning. Next, we should be hearing from Dr. Trish Crawford, Charlton Curry, Davis, last name, next person, Berkeley, Emmanuel, last name begins with an A. Please come forward. Good morning. Next speaker.
Good morning, task force. My name is Dr. Tish Crawford. I'm a part of California State.
Speak into the mic.
Legislation. I'm a part of the California Black Lineage Society and a part of CJAC. In 1849, the first California Convention was held, and one of the biggest heated debates was the state of slavery. Will legislation pass bills that would ban the immigration of free Blacks? Well, I'm going to tell you, that was then, this is now. Thank you, all task force members, Chairman Camilla Moore, Co-Chair Brown, and Dr. Shirley Weber for the rectify, repair, and restore of the future of ancestral descendants of slaves. Thank you as we move forward in the legislative process. Your framework is great, fantastic, love it. Now let's free those records. Remember, compensation is a part of reparations. Thank you for your hard work, and the ancestors bless you.
Thank you. All right, next speaker, please. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Charlton Curry. I do a host of a podcast with Big C Sports. I talk about reparations. I thank the task force. I think you guys are amazing. I thank you for your wisdom. I believe that everybody, you can give that a clap. Everybody that has a hand in making this happen, put your hand on the Bible, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Black Americans helped the United States Union win the Civil War, and they gave the land to the reparations of the other people who lost it. The Southern Confederates. That's not right. We're just asking for things to be done that's proper, that pleases God, not politicians. Fairness is fairness. We need desire of money, land, resources, but the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth is what we ask for. And I thank you guys with all my heart, mind, body, and soul, and I thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. All right, next speaker, please. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Carmela Berkeley. Thank you all on the task force and everyone here. I really appreciate it. I'm happy to be here. I'm a Black American descendant of many slaves. I have their names from ancestry and family members. I just want to say I hope this reparation include our children in foster care, because oversight in foster care is not good. The ombudsman in Sacramento and DOG in Los Angeles is not doing enough. You know, our kids have been taken in foster care without any evidence of abuse or neglect, and we need a public oversight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments this morning. Next speaker, please. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Emmanuel Amanfor, and my name resonates with a profound purpose. A man for the people. Today, I stand before you as a candidate for State Assembly District 6, but I'm not just any candidate. I'm a beacon of unwavering dedication to this noble cause. I issue a clarion call to our elected leaders, urging them to step out from the shadows and rally behind this momentous vision of correction. I've been told that supporting this report publicly in politics can be detrimental to a political career. Well, I didn't plan to becoming a politician. I plan on becoming a service leader who knows what is right and can stand firmly on what is right. Far too often, our representatives have cowered behind a veil of self-righteousness, shying away from embracing this monumental report. California is known to be the predecessor of critical change in this country, so why should this be any different? When the time comes for you to exercise your precious right to vote, let it be an act of conviction rooted in the certainty of knowing who truly stands by your side. Together, let us shape a future where justice prevails. To all the remarkable individuals who have poured their hearts and souls into this report, I extend my deepest gratitude for your unwavering resolve and tireless efforts. Your dedication fuels our collective journey
Thank you
towards
very
a better
much.
future.
Thanks for coming out. All right, next group of speakers should have number 19, 20, 20, no, 19, or 22, 23, 24, 25, or 26. That would be Davis, first name, Gail Wilkerson, Elizabeth Jackson, Walter James, Dr. Tanya Burgess, Ken Johnson. Please step forward if I called your name or you have one of those numbers. Please quickly step forward. Good morning. Come on down. Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning. This is Ken Johnson. And I want to thank you guys for doing what you did. You spent, I think it was 2 years studying this to make sure that it was correct. And now that the final decision has been made, I think what we need to do is some action now. Like I would like to see you guys give out letters of credit where we can buy property. We can do things instead of waiting. I'm 78 years old. I don't want to wait 2 or 3 years. You done did. There's an enormous amount of studies done in every city. Now the state has done it and agrees that we have been harmed, miserably harmed, hurt. And so we need to get paid now. Not wait for years and years and years. We waited patiently. So now what I would recommend wholeheartedly is that you give those of us letters of credit so we can help our families, we can help ourselves, we can build businesses. This is what we need. No more meetings, no more waiting. We need it now.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for coming out. Next speaker, please come forward.
Good morning to all the task force members and lawmakers that might be sitting in the audience today. First of all, I just want to thank the task force for the work that you all have engaged in, and for also having the courage to really engage in this work and to take the good and the bad as you've gone along. I especially say thank you to the only non-African American on this task force, Mr. Don Tamaki, who has been a foe and has really stood up for the people, a true ally in the name of John Brown. And I would just like to say that as we move forward to Reggie Jones Sawyer and Senator Stephen Bradford, I ask the ancestors, I stand here for the ancestors, and not for my organization, Bar High, or the Black Housing Advisory Task Force, but for the ancestors, that their spirit will guide you all through this process and the recommendations that will come forth and that will benefit everyone. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks so much. All right. Next speaker should be either Gail Wilkerson, Elizabeth Jackson, or Dr. Tanya Burgess. Good morning.
My name is Gail Wilkerson. I'm here today to stand on the shoulders of my ancestors, starting with my father, who at the age of 14 worked at a funeral home. He was told to throw the black bodies up against the fence and wait until all the whites were processed. My grandparents, my great-grandmother, who committed suicide because she couldn't take care of her children after slavery. My father was in the military. We came down. We were steered to East Palo Alto, 2.5 square miles. Originally, it was 13 miles. And Noah Park went around this way, and then Palo Alto the other way. We ended up 2.5 square miles. They didn't want the citizens. They redlined us. We're still there. We're hanging in there. We're trying to keep from being gentrified. And this is what most cities, thank you, that are going up against. And we need it. We need attention. We need the reparation. And please, 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 thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for your testimony this morning. Our next speaker should be either Elizabeth Jackson, Walter James, Chantel Bacon. Are you in the audience?
My name is Stuart Highland, and I'm speaking on behalf of Elizabeth Jackson. She passed her number on to me. My name is Stuart Highland. I'm from East Palo Alto, California, in the Bay Area. And we're here, we're well represented by Menlo Park and Bellhaven Cousins. We appreciate the magnificent work that's gone on in this process about engaging the community. But I kind of want to push folks that say politicians maybe aren't the answer. As an organizer, I realize whoever the players are and the stakeholders, I have to work with them. And sometimes I have to push them and encourage them to go forward. You've given us a brilliant foundation for going forward. Our job is to come back up here to Sacramento and make sure this gets done and it's delivered. The brother who made the comment earlier about the credits, and some folks have talked about partial payments, there's a way to put the action in motion until we get a more complete and comprehensive solution. We will walk with you all to do that. If you walk with us when we come back up here to put the pressure on the folks that are in Sacramento that need to legislate and put the work into action that you've begun. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next speakers in line should be Chantel Bacon, Patricia McFadden, Nakia Porter, Christian Beer. I'm probably not saying that right. All right, next speaker. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. My name is Walter James. I want to start off by saying thank you to the task force, but I want to read a verse from James chapter 2, verse 14 through 16. Of what benefit is it to my brothers if someone says he has faith, but does not have the works? That faith cannot save him, can it? If any brothers or sisters are lacking clothing and enough food for the day, yet one of you says to them, go in peace, keep warm and well fed, but you do not give them what they need for their body, of what benefit is it? So too, faith by itself, without works, is dead. I want to say that my great-grandfather was an escaped slave from Arkansas who ran away to Oklahoma, where my family was a victim of the bombing of Black Wall Street. My family has been continuously persecuted by this state, by this country, for my whole life. Collectively, I see a myriad of people who have the ability to change their life and to change their position here today. My one king will always be God, no other man. For us to rely on Caesar is no point for us to rely. Give Caesar what you owe Caesar, but pay God what you owe God. For us, collectively, we have the power to change our lives, and we need to stop relying on others to do it for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, next speakers in line should have either numbers 24, 25, 27, 28, 29, or 30. Good morning.
I'm Dr. Tanya Burgess, and I am number 25. I'm not sure where number 24 is.
You're good.
Okay. On behalf of the Burgess family, I stand here on the shoulders of my ancestors who actually trailblazed in the gold country known as Coloma. But I am my brother's keeper, and I want to acknowledge my brother Dwayne Lamont Burgess, who's here. He's in support of the work that our younger brother here, John Burgess, has done. And so I'm going to yield my mic to him because he has been the spokesperson for the family. But just let it be clear, he doesn't stand here alone. Thank you.
Okay, you have 30 seconds, sir. Good morning.
Yeah, I'll just say this since it's brief. Irreparable harm has been done to my family and countless others. Black people don't need more programs. We need an apology, financial repair, and to become tax exempt. Create a revenue tax code, RTC, which was enacted in 1939 from RTC, formerly known as Political Code Statutes, and introduced by Associate Supreme Court Justice Stephen Fields, who brought his brother, drafted these PC statutes from New York during the gold rush. Last and not least, Gavin Newsom. As a battalion chief in the city of Sacramento that still suffers from systemic issues, the last thing the fires need is another politician. If you are not here, I want to let you know that Black Americans are watching nationwide.
Thank you. All right, our next speaker should have numbers 24 through 30. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Chantel Bacon. I'm representing the Floods, the Hobbs, the Bacons, the Pickens, the Washingtons, the Fab, the Pulleys, the Ward, the Fergusons, the Whites, the Spites, and the Battle family. I want to encourage the grassroots reparationists, all those in the movement, our underground city, the Clubhouse, FBA, Freedmen, American Negro, Street and Elite, True and Through Black Americans. We are in this for the long haul, so don't fall for the defeatist mindset. No matter the outcome of the California, remember who picked up the baton of Callie House, Fannie Lou Hamer, Carter G. Woodson, Ida B. Wells, Barbara Jordan, John McKissick. It was you. It was us, the descendants. It was those who took the task to do their genealogy, found out foundational Negro Americans. We will continue to get this education and stay involved. Don't let these people railroad us. Juneteenth showed us how those who aren't descendants and aren't foundational American Negroes disrespect our historical lineage. Much like the Nuri Martinez, the Gil Cedillos, the Ron Herreras, the Kevin De Leon, and many others.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry to interrupt you in the middle of your sentence, but thank you for coming out. Thank you so much, everyone. We have time for 5 more speakers. Our next 5 speakers should be either Patricia McFadden, Nakia Porter, Christian Brewer, Scott Turner, or Theodore Harrison. Good morning.
Good morning, peace and blessings, everyone, and thank you to the task force. My name is Nakia Porter. I'm the director of the Melanin Day School Academy, where we create safe spaces for Black families to heal and thrive. A big part of this is focusing on the children. The children need to see themselves thriving. If they don't have land and safe spaces, not just concrete, but grass, nice blue skies, and gardens where they can go and eat food. If they're not seeing that on a day-to-day basis, they don't have that in their future. So I want you to think about the children. Because if the children have a safe home, they're going to thrive. If the children have a loving and supportive family, they're going to thrive. If they're given the resources to see themselves in positive lights, they're going to thrive. So as you're putting together the task force, the parents that I'm standing with, they're looking for land. So they're not worrying about how they're going to feed their children. Proper jobs where they are doing their passions and giving their God-given talents to the world so that we can all thrive collectively. If the children are seeing that, then they can model that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning. Next speaker.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Patricia McFadden, and I'm from San Diego, California. My daughter and I came up last night. I'd like to thank the Reparation Task Force meeting for all your hard work. It was a very the task that you're doing is fantastic. But what I would like to say is that it's time for us to reap the rewards from all of the blood, sweat, and tears of our ancestors. So there's not a Black person in this audience today that has not experienced racism. It's still going on. How many of y'all are experiencing racism? Stand up, stand up. All right, see? It's time for us to reap some of the rewards. There's other people reaping rewards. It's time for us to reap the rewards. I'd like to thank you all for all your hard work. Bye-bye. Hi, Monica.
Thank you. All right, our last 3 speakers of this morning. Good morning, sir.
Hello, my name is Christian Beauvoir. You were pretty close. We're almost there at the tough one. So much gratitude for you all on this historic day on behalf of myself and all of my ancestors who couldn't be here today. I also want to say that if this state puts barriers to access for our people, we won't be able to access it. That the state will be happy to capitalize on any barriers that there are for our folks to access these reparations. The country has taught us this over and over again. It is the function of anti-Black racism that our time and resources are depleted, and that slavery and the afterlives of slavery have created these conditions. It is the function of violence, anti-Black violence, that small barriers can become insurmountable when we're trying to access the resources that our communities need. So as the task force moves into its next steps, I hope everyone carries this question with them: how many Black people can be excluded and this still be called reparations? 97 of the thousands of people who are involuntarily sterilized in this state.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry to cut you off in the middle of your powerful statement, but that's all the time we have. Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Theodore Harrison. I'm a graduate student at the University of Oregon.
Can you speak a little bit louder into the mic? I know it's somewhat low.
I'm a graduate student at the University of Oregon, and I wanted to say I congratulate you on all your work. And normally in most things, 80% is planning, 20% is execution. So I'd say it's not fair to you because it's the other way around. This, what you've done is only 20%. The 80% is ahead of you, right? And so I want to implore the chairman more that her California Freedmen's Bureau, that's where the 80% is. Like the woman spoke about children in foster care, and that if you think of a recent Supreme Court ruling which gave Native Americans control of their children in foster care, we have to have that same control. Conservatives and Republicans want control of your children, right? Because you don't have a future. We also have to have the control of our education system. So I implore you to make that part of the California Freedmen's Bureau, right? That we have control of our education. It's not fair to you guys, and I admit you've done a wonderful job, but your hardest job is ahead of you. And I implore you to take that energy with all of our support to do that.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thanks for coming out today and providing public comments. Our last speaker of the morning.
My name is Scott Turner, lifelong resident of the state of California, labor activist. First, I want to thank everybody in this room for this show of solidarity, because we need this going forward. And I'm just going to pose this one little quick question. I might get a little passionate, but how in the heck are we supposed to resolve the issues that stand with us currently and ahead of us if we continue to shelve problems that are from the past, from years past, continuously over and over and over again? We cannot do better. Today is the start of breaking that cycle. I challenge everybody in this room to continue what we are doing. Thank you to the panel. Thank you for the work that you have done. In my labor work, what we do is represent our members, and the resolution is to make these members whole. Effective today, we're making our brothers and sisters whole. I'm going to stop right there because I'm going to keep going for 55 minutes. Bless everybody.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for coming out this morning. Thank you, everyone. We have reached the allotted time for public comment today, and all of the public comments that have been provided over the phone and in person over the past 24 months has been extremely powerful and appreciated by the task force. So with that, I would like to turn the mic back over to Chair Moore, and thank you again for all the public comments.
Thank you, Ms. Martin Walton, for your assistance. The next item on the agenda is item number 3, action item approval of May 6, 2023 meeting minutes. The task force members have had a chance to review. So at this time, does any task force member want to entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented or present any amendments? Member Holder, you're recognized.
Yeah, I move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second? It has been properly moved by Member Holder and properly seconded by Member Montgomery Stepp to approve the May 6, 2023 minutes as presented. Is there any discussion on the matter? Hearing none, I'll the Parliamentarian Johnson for a roll call vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will start the roll for voting on the approval of the minutes as presented. And I will start with Chair Moore.
Aye.
Chair Moore votes aye. Vice Chair Brown.
Aye.
Vice Chair Brown votes aye. Member Bradford.
Aye.
Member Bradford votes aye. Member Grills. Aye. Member Grills votes aye. Member Holder. Aye. Member Holder votes aye. Member Lewis.
Aye.
Member Lewis votes aye. Member Montgomery Stepp.
Aye.
Member Montgomery Stepp votes aye. Member Tamaki.
Aye.
Member Tamaki votes aye. Madam Chair, there are 9 members present and voting. There are 9 ayes, 0 nays, and no abstentions.
Thank you, Parliamentarian Johnson. The meeting minutes for May 6, 2023 have been approved as presented. The next item on the agenda is item number 4, personal testimony. We've invited a special select few families to provide personal testimony on the harms that they've endured in the state and to describe what reparations they need to them when our proposals are turned into legislation. So the first family we'll hear from are the Johnsons. Marion Johnson, are you here with us today? Thank you. You can come to the podium.
to speak, or you can, wherever you like, or you can go to that microphone, but we prefer you to come to the podium. Thank you so much. Each family will have about 5 minutes to share their story.
Good morning to the members of this California Task Force, to the chair, Ms. Moore, to the vice chair, Dr. Brown. Thank you for this opportunity to tell our story, a story that had been erased and never presented in any history book, a story of two families, one family from Louisiana, another one from Oklahoma. One family landed in San Francisco, the other landed in West Oakland, where the government used eminent domain to snatch our land, and we then landed in Russell City. This is the city where I was born, Hayward, California, and where I was forced out through, again, eminent domain by policies and practices that have been put in place that would eliminate our communities. This was painful for my mother, who sits here, and I'm glad she's still here today to see this. Thank you. They took our land, seized our land, gave us less than pennies on the dollar for our land. Through our research, we found that white business people in that same city were given over $500,000 for their land, where my family on one side was given $1,100, and on the other side only given $2,200. For one side, who had paid $7,500 for their land, they received $2,200. We were forced out into more red line communities, where we suffered from being stripped of resources in our schools. I went to a school where books were scribbled in. Desks that I sat at were scratched up. We had to use paper bags to make book covers. That's how bad our books were. Our parks were unattended, our streets unkept. We still to this day have street sweepers that roll through our city streets. I still live in that redlined area and do not clean up the dirt. So this still exists to this day. Not only that, those same communities were over-policed. I have two brothers who suffered from the cause of over-policing and were placed in a jail that was purchased with money that the county used when they sold our land that they took from us to buy the land to build the jail they put my brothers in. Is this fair? No. My house that my mother bought, she purchased the house and was financed by Mason McDuffie, who had a hand in writing the laws that said we could not live in white areas. So although both my parents worked and had good jobs, my mother was a nurse in the emergency department, my father worked for Alameda County, they wouldn't allow us to move in their communities. But they sold us a house for twice the price of what they were selling new houses for in a red line community. How did this affect us? It didn't do well. Although we struggled and we were able to maintain and we were resilient, was this fair? No, this was not. And it's still taking place to this day. What this task force is doing today is allowing our voices to be heard. I'm thankful for Artavia Berry, who was helped to build, to write the apology from the city of Hayward. Just this week, we received an apology from Alameda County. We received an apology from California Association of Realtors. But apology alone, as a standalone, is not enough. We need to be repaired, restored, and repaid for all the pain and suffering that we have endured. And we still stand here today as upright citizens of the United States of America. And we deserve to be treated just as well as any other community. Today, This is a grandstand for us. We thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. But let's continue on to get repaired, restored, and repaid for the pain that was inflicted upon our community. Thank you so much for this time. I appreciate it.
At this time, thank you so much to the Johnson family for sharing your personal testimony with us. Their story was also covered by NBC Meet the Press as well during the Juneteenth holiday. So if anyone's interested in learning more about their story, please follow Meet the Press on their YouTube. So at this time, I'll ask, is Yvette Porter Moore here? Okay, great. Yvette Porter Moore is the next family to represent. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Yvette Porter Moore, and I'm a native Californian residing in the city of San Diego. It is a true honor to be present here today, and I want to personally thank Camilla Moore, the chair, for inviting me to give testimony on this final day of reparations task force meeting. I also want to recognize my council member, Council President Pro Tem, Monica Montgomery Stepp from San Diego, who represents District 4. And I also would like to recognize Dr. Shirley Weber for presenting this bill. Thank you to all the reparations task force members for all the hard work you have done to get us to this point before the final draft is submitted. I'm a genealogist and a public historian and have been tracing my genealogy and other people's genealogy since 2012. The statement is simple. However, my ancestral journey did not begin in 2012. I want to start with a story about myself. I was born on April 8, 1968 in Hollywood, California. When I was born, my birth mother would not look at me, and she was relinquishing me for adoption. On August 18, 1968, my parents, Betty and Walter J. Porter, adopted me and took me home. I was raised in a stable environment with loving parents who were both educators and taught me to appreciate my Black heritage. When I was 8 years old, I was asked by a friend whose mother taught at the same school as my mom, "Are you adopted?" I had no idea what adopted meant and did not know if I were adopted. So I asked my mom, and she said yes. I accepted the answer and eventually asked what adopted meant. My mother shared with me that when I was born, my birth mother was young, Mexican, and could not care for a child. She also stated my father was Black. My mom shared that they looked at all the other children needing homes and they chose me. That answer sufficed until I got much older. When I was 18, I requested non-identifying information from the adoption agency. The information written was pretty much the same as what my mother shared with me. The additional information the social worker wrote, "You were named Victoria by your mom." I hired a researcher to help me locate my birth parents. Not going into much detail, I found my birth parents' families. I met my maternal grandparents in 1989. My grandfather, Felipe, who looked Native American, invited me into their home to speak with my grandmother, Esther. Esther shared photos and stories about my mother and their family. Esther looked at me and apologized for the choices she made for my birth mother, as she was 15 at the time and I was her second child. However, she told me that they were not proud of their racial attitude, but they made her give me up because I was Black. I later met my birth mother. We have a strained relationship over the years. She later told me that my grandmother Esther said, "We swept you under the rug and you should have been kept there." I met my birth father's family, whose roots were from Noxubee, Mississippi.
My birth father, Johnny Roy Mitchell, died in 1974 at the age of 21 from a heroin overdose. He was one of 10 children born to Reverend Jesse E. Mitchell and Frances Paulette. In 1968, an unmarried father did not have the legal rights to the child of the mother who had given birth. My father's family said they knew about me, wanted to keep me, but had no legal rights to take me home. I have traced my biological ancestry and my parents who raised me and their ancestry. I have discovered a wealth of information pertaining to my ancestry research. Number one, Frances Paulette, my paternal grandmother's great-grandfather, Thomas B. Paulette, enslaved our family in Noxubee County, Mississippi. The plantation is preserved and is now named Circle M Plantation. A description of it is a magnificent southern plantation providing fine hunting and fishing, bed and breakfast, romantic getaways, and hosting of weddings in our lovely antebellum home. My mother, Betty Porter's 3 times grandmother, Perwella Coley, was a free woman of color in the 1820s in North Carolina. She was given 350 acres of land in Havelock, North Carolina, for which my 2 times great-grandfather, William H. Coley Jr., inherited along with his siblings. Later, it was passed down to the next generation. However, the U.S. government took their property through eminent domain, which included many Black families who had lived on the land of which is now Cherry Point Marine Base. My ancestors were not properly compensated. 10 years ago, I met the great nephew of my father, Walter Porter. His name was Robert Fulford, who died a few years ago. I met him in Dermont, Arkansas, which is very close in proximity to the county of Lake Providence, Louisiana, where my father was born. Robert was a storyteller and author of various small books that told of his childhood while living on Yellow Bayou Plantation. He shared stories of my dad's half-brother, Jack Porter, and the living and working conditions of being a sharecropper. Jack and his family were treated so badly as tenement farmers. They would always owe the man, and the share that they received was not enough to care for his family, and he would have to yet again borrow from the owner of the farmland. In order to get away from this way of life, Jack had to slip away into the night and move elsewhere. Eventually, Jack migrated to Los Angeles, California, with my grandmother, to my grandmother, Helen Bunn's home. I present these stories to you because I have been fortunate enough to have been reunited with my birth family and to learn more about my ancestry. Many adoptees and individuals raised in foster homes may have a difficult time finding their lineage. However, with today's technology and DNA testing, research has been much easier for those who have been cut off from their family ties. Since qualifications for reparations is going to be determined through lineage-based research, there needs to be legislative law changes to open sealed birth and adoption records. We as adoptees do not have access to our original birth certificates. We as adoptees have been cut off from our legal rights of claiming our heritage and ancestry. So then what? Can we claim our lineage through our adopted family of African American descent? What if one's parents are not of African American descent, but the adoptee is? Why should adoptees be harmed by this too? I am pleading that the genealogy branch of the new state agency will take the issue into consideration. I read a testimony where it was said that descendants taking DNA tests could be costly. I think we should consider having the test covered through reparations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yvette Porter Moore, for that personal testimony. That was incredibly moving and informative. The last family we'll hear from a person is Elmer Fonza. Elmer Fonza here. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My family members are passing out to the board members the journey my family's been finding our connection to Nelson Bell, a black gold miner and landowner and a slave in California. My name is Elmer Fonza. I am here to talk about Nelson Bell, a black gold miner and landowner who lived in Coloma, California from 1850 till his death in 1869. He is my third great-grandfather. In 1790, Nelson Bell was born into slavery on the John Gregory plantation in Mecklenburg, Virginia. It was customary during that time for slaves to take the surname of their masters. At the age of 20, Nelson was allowed to marry and have children. In 1816, John Gregory dies, and Nelson and his family were sold. Across the southern states, slaves were generally prohibited by law from entering into any legal binding marriage. The wife and children of Nelson were bought by a man named Mr. Finch, while Nelson was sold to a slave trader and taken to New Orleans. Nelson later became the property of James Sparks and returned to Virginia. At that time, Nelson took a second wife, and after the death of James Sparks in approximately 1820, Nelson became the property of a Mr. Bell. Nelson was valued at $600. It was at that time Nelson took the surname Bell. Between the years 1833 and 1850, Nelson Bell and his wife had 3 sons, Nelson Bell Jr., Philip Bell, my second great-grandfather, and Paul Bell. During that time, his wife and children were sold and taken to Kentucky. In 1850, Nelson came to Coloma, California with Mr. Bell and was given his freedom shortly thereafter. In 1856, a free Nelson Bell purchased several parcels of land, approximately 11 plus acres, in and around the town of Coloma, where he worked driving a water wagon and mining for gold. Nelson died in 1869. The cause of death is unknown since death certificates were not required until 1900. A few days after Nelson's death, his land and personal property were put into probate. Personal property was later sold by a probate administrator, but the sale of his land was not recorded in the probate report. However, the probate report did list his real property as a dwelling house and land adjacent to the town of Coloma, which was bound on the north by Main Street, on the east by Martin Fleming's property, and on the south and west by Jonas Wilder's property. Also, the land fronting Main Street belonging to Nelson had 4 Chinese tenement houses on it valued at $300. The land once owned by Nelson Bell is now part of the California State Park. It is unclear how the state acquired the land once owned by Nelson Bell. We believe it was by eminent domain. As I look back on my family's journey, I can only imagine the hardships that Nelson Bell must have endured. Living in slavery for more than 60 years, having 2 of his family sold during that time, unworthy of family love, care, and support. The joy he must have felt upon becoming free prior to the end of the Civil War. He was now able to be paid wages for his labor, own land, and accumulate wealth for his family. Nelson Bell's descendants may have experienced a better quality of life if his wealth was passed on to future generations. There were no effects made by the state of California to contact his sons, Nelson Bell Jr. and Philip Bell, who were both alive and working in Virginia as laborers during 1867. Nelson Bell Jr. died in 1914, still in Virginia and working as a laborer. Things may have been different for Nelson Bell's great-grandson, William Bell Jr., who did more than 20 years in an Iowa State Penitentiary, or for his great-granddaughter, Ethel Bell, my grandmother, who was raped by a white man when she was 15 years old and got pregnant with my mother, Blossom Bell. My mother married Holly Fonza and raised 7 kids on a 4th grade education. We lived on the south side of Des Moines, Iowa, an area known as the Dirty Bottoms. There were dirt roads, no sidewalks. Our house had no running water and or inside bathrooms. Every spring, the river would overflood and fill our yard with toxic waste-filled water for weeks at a time. My mother worked as a cook. My father was a butcher at the slaughterhouse. My mother died not knowing her family history, with the exception of her grandfather, Wim Bell. But she made sure that all of her kids graduated high school. However, the negative environment of poverty that existed influenced my oldest brother and I to make poor choices. For instance, we both did time in the penitentiary. However, my other siblings made better choices to escape poverty. For instance, my older brother, who is not here with me today, filed a civil rights lawsuit against the city of Des Moines and became the first black firefighter in the state of Iowa. He went on to become the fire chief in the city of Compton, California. One of my sisters was a member of the Platters, a well-known singing group that sung all over the world. Another sister was in charge of purchasing for the Kaiser Corporation. We had to fight racism all of our lives, both in Iowa and California. We must continue to fight for what was taken or denied us as a people. On behalf of the descendants of Nelson Bell, thank you for inviting us here today to tell our family story. We rightfully believe that we have been denied the generational wealth that our family may have been entitled to if given our rightful inheritance, the land once owned by Nelson Bell. And again, Nelson Bell's descendants would like to thank the Reparation Task Force, the state of California, and Governor Newsom for being the first to right the wrongs of slavery.
Thank you to Marion Johnson and her family, Yvette Porter Moore and her families, and to Elmer Fonza and his family. That was an incredibly moving personal testimony, perfect for this last hearing. So the next item on the agenda is action item number 5, reflections by task force members, economists, and Department of Justice. And a presentation of the task force's final report and recommendation. So I'll turn to Attorney Newman. Okay, so we'll start with the task force members who have reflections on this arduous 2-year process that we've been on together. Would anyone like to start? I'll start. Oh. Okay, I prepared a few remarks. First, I would like to say I have been deeply honored to serve on this historic task force alongside my fellow esteemed colleagues, all of which who were appointed either by California Governor Gavin Newsom, President Pro Temp of the California State Senate, Tony Atkins, or Speaker of the California Assembly, Anthony Rendon. The 9-member task force comprises of longtime, as you all know, civil and human rights leaders, academics, lawyers, psychologists, and elected officials. In fact, the task force's 16 public hearings to date have been incredibly inspiring and robust due to the diversity of thought amongst the fellow members of the task force, who all hold and represent a wide range of political, historical, and sociocultural perspectives on the topic of reparatory justice that is culminated in this nearly 1,000-page final report. The remaining of my remarks are more personal in nature. I know there's a lot of people outside too, but I'll start my remarks now. Wolof, Bombana, Bambara, Nar, Moore, Poulard, Fulby, Mandinga, Kisi, Kanga, Chamba, Phone, Hausa, Nago, Edo, Calabar, Ibio, Congo, Makwa, Arda, Moko, Dindi, Java, Nina, Ewe, Nupe. According to the Whitney Plantation Museum, these are some of the indigenous African ethnicities of which members were bartered and sold as human cargo from the great and exploited continent known as Africa, as the late Reverend Martin Luther King said in his last book, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community? To the colony of Louisiana. Through sheer terror and violence, European enslavers attempted to strip these indigenous African human beings of their cultural and ethnic heritages, relying on the power to label them Negro, Black, mulatto, or other socially constructed terms to deny them of their human right to self-determination. The vestiges of descent-based chattel slavery that mar my family's history in the United States traveled consequently with us all the way to California through the Great Migrations, like my father's ancestors who were once enslaved on the Whitney Plantation in Louisiana, formerly known as Habitation Hydel. And like my mother's ancestors, namely my grandmother and great-grandmother Catherine Young and Viola Wilson Cooper, who were subjected to slavery by another name known as sharecropping in Chula, Mississippi. These mighty women were internal refugees trekking from Chula to Los Angeles to escape caste slavery and other forms of terror in the Deep South, only to be met by Jim Crow again out west. As the esteemed Ta-Nehisi Coates once wrote, never forget that we were enslaved in this country longer than we have been free. Chattel slavery, sharecropping, convict leasing, de jure and de facto segregation, redlining, educational funding discrepancies, predatory financial practices, unfair labor practices, chronic unemployment, medical experimentation, intellectual property deprivation, environmental terror, family separation, police brutality, anti-African American hate crimes, vigilante violence, extrajudicial terror, war on drugs, mass incarceration, unfair sentencing, the school to prison pipeline, extreme poverty, homelessness, gentrification, wealthlessness. We have been relegated to the bottom of the caste system in this country. Black, African American, American freedmen, however you want to call us, we are resiliently surviving. We are resiliently surviving the afterlife of descent-based chattel slavery. In fact, African Americans have been historically burdened with confronting the aforementioned lingering badges and incidents of slavery without significant government aid or private action, particularly since the broken promise of Reconstruction in this country and the injustice that we have been confronting these badges and incidents of slavery without significant government aid or private action, particularly since the broken promise of Reconstruction and the unjust dismantling of the Freedmen's Bureau in 1872 that accompanied it. So, as I conclude, it is my hope that the task force's general efforts reinvigorates the Black American community to exercise our human right to self-determination with the renewed spirit and energy that enables us to freely determine our political status and to pursue our economic, social, and cultural development via comprehensive reparatory justice policies. Reparations Task Force will sunset in a couple of days, actually during the International Decade for People of African Descent, which is from 2015 to 2024, which was proclaimed by the UN General Assembly. So it is also my hope that the task force general efforts strengthen the movement for global reparatory justice for people of African descent. Lastly, the task force's final report also highlights the unjust treatment in some instances of many groups in California, from Native, Latinx, Asian, and African Black diaspora communities and other marginalized groups. So it is also my hope that the task force's general efforts empowers these groups in their respective advocacy and ultimately strengthens the capacity for cross-cultural allyship and movement building. It's been an honor and a privilege, and thank you. That concludes my message. So now we'll go to Vice Chair Brown, and then we'll go to Member Montgomery Step.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To my esteemed colleagues who have done an unparalleled job of addressing the unfinished business of eradicating from the body politic of this state of California. I'm a history buff. For this symbolic statement here of the Sankofa bird, the symbolism representing a bird with an egg in its mouth, looking backwards in order to go forward and have pregnant possibilities for one's future. Quickly, number one, I want to go back as we debate the altness and the rightness of our demanding redress and repair. Many, because they don't read, haven't discovered that the first governor of this state of California was one Peter Hartman I want to see if you knew it. Burnett. And in his politics that infected him before he got to California, I must recite for you his trail. Came from Nashville, Tennessee, and led the first wagon train westward in 1843. And that rascal had an established policy that no mulattoes or blacks would be permitted to be in that wagon train. And when he got to the Oregon Territory, he settled a town called Germantown. And again, his official act of business was to be mean as hell to black people. For he established an ordinance that was dubbed, that was named the Peter Burnett flogging law, that stipulated any mulatto or black who's caught in that town would be beaten every 6 months until he or she left town. And that law stayed on the books of what began to be the Oregon Territory and later the state of Oregon until 1926. And that's why we've had so many reactionary, mean-spirited, bigoted folks up in the Idahos and the Oregon states right now. But in 1848, when he heard that gold was down here in California, he led another wagon train, ended up here in the Sacramento area. He was so slick and sleazy that he was able to emerge as the first governor, I repeat, of this state. And in this book that I'm delighted to recommend to you by Nooks, great scholar, it is documented, my friends, that he was the Donald Trump, the troubled businessman of that era. Let me hasten to say, he had to leave office. He had to leave office in disgrace because some debts from the Midwest caught up with him. But still, after he left his stain. And he was able to get on the state Supreme Court of the state of California. And there was the major civil rights case of the West involving a 19-year-old lad from my native state of Mississippi, R.C. Lee. R.C. Lee was brought here to Sacramento by Charles Stovall. Came from the biggest slave holding family of the state of Mississippi in North Mississippi and Carroll County. That man, Peter Burnett, when he sat on that high court and that case of R.C. Lee was heard, when Charles Stovall wanted to take him back to Mississippi as an enslaved person, though California was a free state. But Peter Burnett voted with the minority opinion that R.C. Lee would be sent back to Mississippi as an enslaved person. Thank God that right won. He was set free. But black people were not set free from that mutation of enslavement. But in the state of California, we were subjected to such horror, such helplessness, and such harm that in the city of San Francisco, on April the 13th, 1858, over 800 blacks in segments fled from San Francisco up to British Columbia, where they settled. Why am I citing all of this history? So that you will have today, as we conclude, a Sankofa moment of looking back and saying, regardless of what this nonsense is that Mr. DeSantis down in Florida tries to inflict upon us, we're going to look back and we're going to read and we're going to make sure that our descendants will be able to consult this great document and see the evidence that this state has committed the crime against black folks and it's time for them to pay their crime bill. Don't come telling us that you don't have the money. But where I come from in Mississippi, they had what you call a layaway plan. And if you can't pay it because of deficits don't last always. Even when we had a solvent budget, we still were mean to black folks, denying us quality education. And Coach Leo was right. We experienced savage inequality in education. So shame on that Supreme Court of the United States of America that is meeting to tell us, even as we meet, that affirmative action should be no more. I say to you, my teacher and friend, Dr. Martin Luther King was right when he said in that class in social philosophy in 1962, if America and California, I would say parenthetically, has done mean, unjust things to the Negro, it must organize and do good things with the Negro for the benefit of the Negro and the folks. That sounds like reparations. Yeah. That sounds like an affirmative action. And we need to stop lying on Dr. King and his dream when he was talking about justice. And that check that came back bounced. Insufficient funds. So I did to do today. Say, I thank God that I have my dear wife over here to my left. Jane Evangeline. Yes. Who bends the wind beneath my wings. And I commit this day at the age of 82 that I'm going to stay in the struggle until God calls me home. I'm going to stay in the struggle until death rolls down like waters and as an ever-flowing stream. I'm going to stay in the struggle until the day will come that because of the fight of this task force and the integrity of black folks who were the only ones to be enslaved in this nation, I'm going to stay in the struggle until America is redeemed. And the day will come when all of us will be able to say, I'm black and I'm proud. I'm proud and I'm proud. I'm yellow and I'm black. I'm red but I ain't dead. I'm white and I'm all right. I'm a woman and a wall. I'm a kid, but I'm golfing. Hey, I'm an and I'm industrious. That's what this separation is about. For the good of America. God bless you. May heaven smile upon you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Brown, for those wonderful remarks. We'll now turn to Member Montgomery Step.
What do you say after that? I guess you say it loud. I'm Black and I'm proud. This really has been a journey of a lifetime, and I think that in my career and my life, this will be the most impactful thing that I have done and been a part of. And I know that the work is not yet done. I am the daughter of Clifford and Patricia Montgomery, and the granddaughter of Olinda and Leroy, Tanner and Jack, the great granddaughter of Floyd and Bessie and Tom and Clotilde, and I do what I do for them. My father came to San Diego from Joppa, Texas, by way of the military, and my mother came to San Diego from Mississippi when she was 2 years old. Her family believed that they could experience true freedom in California, but they did not. Sunny California was then and is now riddled with covert laws that masquerade as fair and equal. They are actually racist and harmful. Proposition 209 was one of those. My parents built a construction business from the ground up. Before California voters passed Prop 209, my parents were successfully building generational wealth for my brothers and I. They were well qualified, well prepared, and innovative. As we would say today, they were young, Black, and gifted. Unfortunately, their hard work and persistence were no match for the racial undertones that were embedded in Prop 209. Once affirmative action was taken away, so were my parents' dreams and their wealth. This dynamic shift of minority business exclusion in California happened as I prepared for college. Although my parents were not in the financial position they wanted to be in, they insisted that I attend Spelman College anyway. I remember my mom sending me the very last bit of money so that I would not starve. I worked and went to school full time, and it proved to be too stressful for my body. In the middle of college, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. Now, after going through this reparations journey, I wonder if my parents had been free to use their knowledge and talent to provide adequately for their family, would I have had to suffer so much? My parents experienced direct harm from the racist policies influenced by systemic oppression. And although my life at the time was a byproduct of their struggle, I experienced the racism and struggle here every single day, especially as a woman in the descendant community who is an elected leader in these white spaces. I understand what is at stake here. My life's journey allows me to see reparations as a spiritual reckoning, a calling for truth and justice. And we know that the truth is the only thing that will set us free. We have been on the battlefield fighting against principalities and things that we cannot see in order to force this system to do right by descendants of enslaved people for the generational harm that has been inflicted upon us. We must believe that reparations can come to fruition. We've come such a long way, and this work must not be in vain. So I'm calling for all of us to continue to make the case for a full reparations package. We are not asking for performative justice, but demanding reparations in all categories: satisfaction, restitution, compensation, apology, and guarantee of non-repetition. It is not unreasonable, it is not unattainable, and it is not unjustifiable for this state to address the immense harm done to descendants of enslaved people. Lastly, I will just say there are not enough words to thank the Honorable Dr. Shirley Weber, Secretary of State, for authoring AB 3121 and getting us here where we are today. And I just want to personally say thank you to her. I also want to thank the DOJ and my fellow, yes, we can clap for that, my fellow task force members for sharing the last 2 years of your life and doing the emotional labor it requires to see the types of outcomes we have today. I truly appreciate you, and I know the individual sacrifices that you have all have made. And lastly, I want to thank Chair Moore. Chair Moore, thank you for standing strong
Thank you for your conviction. And thank you for leading with a combination of your heart and your mind. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Member Montgomery Step, for that incredibly moving reflections. I'll turn to Senator Bradford for his reflections.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And let me first thank each and every one of you who made this a priority to be here this morning. Really appreciate all of you here, but most importantly, those who followed this process for the last 2 years, who followed us up and down the state to let your voices be heard. Greatly appreciated and should be recognized that we're here because of you. And let me begin also by saying what a great honor it has been to serve on this task force. And as an individual who's been elected for 25 years, I have no doubt this will be the most impactful public service work and policy I will do in my career. I have no doubt. And I want to thank these 8 amazing individuals that I've had to serve with. Dr. Grills, give her a round of applause. Attorney Holder, our amazing chair, Attorney Moore, Don Tamaki, Attorney Don Tamaki, for your wisdom, your insight, your patience, your calmness. Councilwoman Montgomery Step, Dr. Devon Scott Lewis, for your brilliance. But last but not least, my North Star, my rock, the sage, wise, not preacher, but teacher, Amos Brown. Give him a round of applause, because many times when we were swaying off course, he always made it real, as you heard in his presentation. And it's factual. It's not something that's, he knows, he's lived it. So thank you, Dr. Brown, for your wisdom, your friendship, your guidance, your tutelage, and all that. And we must remind each and every one of us that the final report is not the end of the work. It is really just the beginning. So it requires each and every one of us to stay engaged in this process. We have to. The job of the task force was not to implement anything. It was simply to recommend and to advise. It is now up to the legislature, which I'm part of, and the governor to implement it. But you guys have to stay engaged. You have to be across the street in those hearings. You have to support Dr. Weber 2.0, who's a member of the Legislative Black Caucus. You got to support Reggie Jones Sawyer as we move a comprehensive bill package forward to implement what's in this report. So that's critically important. Over the last 2 years, this task force has documented in great detail the history of slavery, not only in this nation, but in California, and the patterns of systemic racism and injustice that continue long after slavery ended. We've documented the racially motivated taking of Black land, as we've heard from the 3 families here, of Bruce's Beach here in Southern California, which I was honored to legislate and pass legislation to return that property. But we know about Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Inkwell, and so many other places all across this nation where land was stolen. The over-policing, the over-incarceration of African Americans, the denial of home ownership through practices like redlining, restrictive covenants, and now R1s, R2s, and R3s. People don't understand. In 1948, Thurgood Marshall and Lauren Miller, 2 Black attorneys, went to the Supreme Court and overturned restrictive covenants. 2 years later, cities started implementing R1s, R2s. That's an extension of racism, whether we want to believe it or not. So we need to know that history as well. And the harm still exists today, because it's plenty of African Americans who have never owned homes in this state or in this country. When slavery ended in 1863, there was a promise made to those slaves of 40 acres and a mule. A promise of land that was never paid. People often say, why California? California was a free state, but in name only, not in practice, not in practice, not in deeds. As Reverend Brown stated, the first governor of the state owned slaves and was proud of it. If you were brought here as a slave, you were treated as a slave. If you gave birth here as a slave, that child was born a slave. If you were a runaway, we had a fugitive slave law that returned you back to the state and the plantation that you escaped from. People will say, I didn't own slaves, so why should I have to pay? And I often say, if you can inherit generational wealth, you can inherit generational debt. And this is a debt that is owed. And most generational wealth in this country has been derived through slavery or the access to free labor over the years. But Dr. Weber stated it far more eloquently and more plain for all of us to understand. And she said, you may not have planted the tree, but you surely enjoy the shade that it produces. Reparations is truly and simply a debt owed to those descendants of chattel slavery. Reparations is not a gift. It's not a handout. It is not charity. It is what was promised, what was owed, and what is long overdue. I had the privilege of serving across the street in the legislature for over 12 years, and I've lost count of the number of bills that we dealt with regarding wage theft. Well, slavery was 250 years of wage theft. 90 years of Jim Crow wage thefts. And this has been, like I say, 250 years where slaves were denied an income. And the harm of wage theft still exists today. This task force makes numerous worthy and important recommendations on what reparations could include. It could include cash payments. It can include free tuition to our UCs and CSUs. It can be a first-time home buyer assistance down payment, interest-free loans, state tax relief, free health care, on and on and on. We can do this. Many people say, what's the cost of reparations? Let's be clear and honest. The cost of reparations will be high. But make no mistake, the harms that are done are just as high. And the harms and the disparities it created continues to this day. Now that the final report is completed, our recommendations must be considered by the legislature, as I stated. As a member of the California State Senate, it will be up to me and my colleagues to begin the hard work of turning this into policy that we can implement and making it a reality, not just an aspirational hope, but a reality. People say, how can we pay for this? We just passed a $300 billion budget in California. If we just put 0.5% of our budget into annuity annually, that's $1.5 billion a year. We can pay for it. No one asks how we pay for high-speed rail that many in the legislature call the train to nowhere that is now beyond $100 billion. But we find money to do that. So this is our priority. We often say our budget is a reflection of our values and our priorities. If this is true, then reparations needs to be in our budget. It has to be in our budget. And if it's not, then it's just words on paper. It won't be easy, because I'm not going to mislead any of you guys here. It will not be easy. I'm not under any illusion. And I urge everyone, again, to understand that this is going to be a start of another lengthy process. We won't do it in one legislative cycle. We won't do it in one bill. But we need, again, all of you to stay engaged, to let your voices be heard. Let's be seen. I encourage all Californians and every one of my colleagues in the legislature to not just receive this report, but to read it. Because as Reverend Brown states, this is the truth. Everyone must be educated, and we must educate ourselves on California history as well as American history. Reparations has been painstakingly documented in California and the role of slavery and the decades of systemic discrimination that followed. It is often said that there are stories that made America, and then there's stories that America has made up. Much of what we teach is the stories that America has made up. This is the story that made America. This is the story that made America. We must educate ourselves on the real history and not the whitewashed version that they want to teach and continue to teach. The task force report is documented with citations and footnotes. People can choose to ignore it. They can be uncomfortable with the history, but you cannot deny the truth. Now it's the time to face it, folks. To own up to the debt that is owed. To right the historic wrongs here in California and across this nation. To restore and repair the damages that has been done. And we can do this. We can do this if we're committed to it. It was done for our Jewish brothers and sisters when we helped them after the Holocaust in Germany, not on American soil, as Attorney Tamaki did so great, effectively 30 years ago, and recognizing the harms to our Japanese brothers and sisters who were interned during World War II. We made reparations to them. We made them whole. And now our Native American indigenous people, they're benefiting from reparations to what we call now gaming. Gaming. That is their reparation. And so when we do this, California will be an example for not only other states, but this nation as a whole of what can be done and what should be done. We can be that North Star to guide the rest of this nation. I'm ready to take on the next step. I'm ready to start that debate. I'm ready to fight the good fight, as John Lewis stated, to pay the debt that is owed and to repair the damages that have been done to the state and to this nation and to the people of chattel slavery. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Bradford, for those powerful reflections. I'll now turn to Attorney Tamaki for his reflection.
I'd like to defer to my other task force members. So Professor Lewis or Professor Grills or Lisa, no, seriously.
No, we reject that, please. Done.
Well, I have the misfortune of following the orators on this task force. And we've not heard from Professor Grills or Lisa Holder or Professor Lewis, but these are hard acts to follow. So, that's my situation. And let's face it, I stick out like a sore thumb. In the group task force, I was just going to say in the group task force picture, I look like the little Asian guy that's photobombing the group picture. And so I want to thank the task force members. I want to thank Chair Moore. She's changed my wife's dinner table conversation with me. When I want to speak, I have to raise my hand. And she says, Member Tamaki, you are recognized. So you brought order to our home. Thank you, Chair Moore. So seriously, and my remarks are a parade of thank yous and statements of gratitude. First, Secretary Shirley Weber, who had the vision to push this through. And in as much as it's never been done before in the entire history of the country to this degree, in as much as federal legislation has stalled for almost 40 years, where Congress has not shown the will to even study reparations, let alone do anything about it. This work is groundbreaking. And so I'm grateful. I want to thank the advocacy organizations here and elsewhere that are both determined, competent, and racially diverse in terms of allies. I want to thank Attorney General Bonta for deploying the resources to support the attorneys and the staff to do this work. Let me talk a little bit about allyship, and so much of this is personal to me. You know, my parents, by order of the military, were among those groups of Bay Area, 8,000 of them actually, that were forced out of their homes at gunpoint and sent into Tanforan racetrack. The racetrack in San Bruno, it's now a shopping center, but then it was surrounded by barbed wire and machine gun towers. And they went from their homes to living literally in a horse stall while 10 concentration camps were being built from California to Arkansas. One of the things they didn't miss was the irony that the racetracks, restrooms, and drinking fountains were segregated and marked by signs reading white and colored. And why is that significant? To them, it meant that what started out as anti-Black hatred and bias, and Jim Crow entering the state from its very beginnings, simply found a new target, at least for this period of time. And at that time, Japanese Americans in the racial hierarchy suddenly found themselves in the crosshairs, and they never forgot that. We also don't forget the fact that African American people opened the door and everybody else walked through it. And so it's a matter of simple justice, as a matter of morality, but also as a matter of reciprocity. Organizations, groups, individuals, populations, we need to get into this fight. And it must be led by African American leadership. And I'm privileged to be on this task force with such competent, formidable, excellent, leadership. And I look forward to continuing that fight. But all of us, the rest of us, have to get involved in this to support this, realizing that fundamentally this is an American issue. It's about an original sin that was never addressed. And so it goes to the core of who we think we are as Americans. Professor Grills mentioned it this morning during the press conference. It goes to the meaning of democracy that we're being challenged with at this very moment. And so it goes to changing culture that produced the systems that in turn produce the outcomes that we're seeing today. As a reflection of that endorsement, let me give you an example. About 7 months ago, the Japanese American Bar Association in Los Angeles and the John M. Langston Bar Association in Los Angeles connected in a showing of allyship to start an endorsement campaign, endorsing the concept of reparations, that it is time for the legislature to seriously consider it and to implement it. And we started with maybe 20 or 30 organizations. Today, I can tell you that is 306 organizations. And it's also spread into the mainstream. You'd expect the civil rights groups, the social services groups, big and small, to be there, and they are. The faith community has signed up for this. The California Wellness Foundation, the Weingart Foundation, these are $2 billion philanthropies that are saying it's time. The Bar Associations of Los Angeles, one of the biggest bars in the country, San Francisco, Alameda, Sacramento has joined this effort. We have 306 now. I'm sure that'll be double in the next few months, and shortly we hope to grow that into the thousands. Critics might be dismissive of an endorsement campaign, but bear in mind, this hasn't happened before. This is the first time where this conversation is really entering the mainstream in a way that people feel comfortable enough to endorse it. So I think we have the beginnings of the social movement of changing the needle of public opinion in order to give the legislature the political will to actually get this done. But as other speakers have mentioned, the fight really is now. The fight, the real work has to begin. I want to next, we've been thanked a lot. I appreciate it personally, but I want to also lift up those, individuals within the Department of Justice that produced this work. We reviewed it, we helped to edit it, but the amount of research and the amount of writing that went into this is breathtaking. And the quality of this work, of this quality, only gets done when people believe in the mission. And if folks were just kind of doing it as part of their job and going through the motions, it would be reflected in the work. But when people believe in the mission, their heart and soul, they commit to it. It's the reason why they joined the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. It is reflected in the work, and I can't tell you how many times on the weekends, weeknights at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., I'm getting emails about edits and things that are being suggested, research that has to be done, and filling all the holes. So I'm going to tag team with Professor Grills on this to show some appreciation and some love to the people that really produced this work that we now stand on. And let me say this, it's going to resonate nationally, and the ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Following the footsteps of Pastor Brown here, I think, as Lisa Holder said, this is the book of truth, and every social movement requires the scholarly and intellectual underpinnings, and this is it. And I thought I knew something about American history, felt I was pretty well read, and after working on the report, the interim report, I realized my understanding is not even close. I did not understand the decade after decade after decade, one thing after another, as the bias and the hate morphed from one version to another. And what this report has done is connect the dots. And as Zion Yang has said, who supervised the writing team, I mean, if you went to hundreds of different sources to find this material, but there's value in it all being assembled and synthesized in one place, and then the dots are connected to show how our past has created today's outcomes. And so, we thank you for that. And I want to just lift up some names here. Michael Newman has done a masterful job guiding this process. So we appreciate that. Damon Brown, outstanding. Thank you so much. I'll call out Sarah Belton. She no longer is with the Department of Justice, but my understanding is that she looked at the amount originally proposed without, when it wasn't given much thought as to how the task force and what the resources the task force would be, and responsible for building this team out that, is a couple dozen lawyers, involves Department of Justice PhDs, and many people, including legislative staff like Nick Fletcher and others who were pulled into this process of reviewing and producing this work. And the other thing I think is she deserves credit for structuring, having the vision to structure the sequencing of each chapter, which begins with enslavement, goes into racial terror, then goes into political disenfranchisement, and you can see the historical trend line, and then into housing, segregation, and segregation in education and in healthcare and everything else. And that took, you know, that kind of vision we're now reaping the benefits of. Ziyin Yang is here. She supervised the writing team on the interim report. And can you imagine the difficulty of taking everybody's writing and synthesizing it into a coherent, non-redundant piece of work, and making it seamless, like it's written by one person as opposed to, you know, dozens. So that is an enormous amount of work. And let me call out the other names here too. Christine Chuang, Robin Goldfaden, Tony Sefarius, Francisco Balderrama, Dr. Tiffany Jans Desarmo, Jesse Bussbaum, Kelly Burns, Lisa Ehrlich, Danielle Elliott, Laura Fair, Vince Gazawi, Jennifer Gibson, Newton Knowles. You could see how many people worked on this. Tanya Kochi, Edward Nugent, Sri Panchalam, Dong Shin, Dalen Viveras, Delbert Chen, Mina Visvanathan. And here, I want to lift up the team that really made these hearings possible, and all the communications and fielding of the comments for the public, and there's tons of work that happened in the background. So Katarina New, Noel Garcia, Alicia Turner, Shanice Flowers, Trini Hurtado, Oscar Estrella, Aisha Martin Walton, and Dorothea Johnson. So I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl because I know she wants to say some comments on this thing.
Thank you, Don. You actually said much of what I was going to say. But specific to the DOJ and recognizing how instrumental, how central, how essential they were to the work of this task force, I'm reminded of the song, "We Who Believe in Freedom Cannot Rest." DOJ did not rest. For the last 2 years, they have worked tirelessly. And as Dawn said, it was because it wasn't just a job. They had skin in the game. And like a young man said in a meeting that I read yesterday, he said, people like our rhythm, they want no parts of our blues. DOJ rolled up its sleeves and said, we're in it, and we're gonna walk through the blues with you. And so I think that because of what they did, their commitment, their excellence, that they deserve a standing ovation.
Yeah, sure. Member Grills, we'll turn to you for your final reflections.
Thank you. So, you know, I'm a psychologist. So I'm going to share my comments through the lens of a psychologist, a clinical psychologist nonetheless, who understands how critical it is to appreciate human behavior and the human spirit. So in saying that, first of all, I want to say that being on this task force has been an honor. It has been an honor to serve alongside my colleagues here up on this dais. It has been an honor to serve with the DOJ team. And it has been an honor to do what I can to respect the memory of my grandfather. My granddaddy, I called him granddaddy. He was a sharecropper who worked his way out of that condition to create his own businesses in Manning, South Carolina, and to put his 3 daughters of his 6 children all through college. It broke my heart when I was trying to do my own lineage search to see granddaddy, someone who is a giant in my eyes, listed as a bag boy. I'm here this day to say you were not a bag boy. You will not be disrespected that way. Granddaddy, you are a proud, industrious, principled Black man, father, grandfather, and stoic, who in the middle of the night would go and cut down or remove Black bodies hanging from trees. That was what my grandfather did. Strange fruit, for sure. I pray that he and all of our ancestors in this room are looking upon us today and saying, job well done. So this has been, for me, the work on this task force, it's been a labor of love, marked by the highest of highs. Those highs including witnessing the brilliance of our experts, our scholars, our lawyers, who have come and given testimony that contributed to this encyclopedia of truth.